And it's my distinct pleasure tonight to welcome a real leader in our business community here to our class. Ethel Williams is someone who, at a personal level, I've seen all over the place in Boca since I got here 4.5 years ago. She is on so many boards, and I've seen her, I was just joking with her when I got up here, I've seen her first giving awards to people. I've seen her leading meetings around the community. I've seen her getting awards from people. She's had a long and distinguished career here. Currently, she is Senior Vice President for Development and Public Affairs with Kaufman Lynn Construction. This brings to bear her experience in law and real estate. She's an accomplished community and business leader with over 30 years of professional experience and a commendable history of leadership, dedication, and advocacy. She has extensive knowledge of real estate, government, law, and public affairs, and combine that with a passion to make a difference in the communities she serves. And these are the assets she brings to add value to Kaufman Lynn's strategic growth. And if you keep an eye out around here, you'll see the Kaufman Lynn signs, not only around campus, but all over this region. She's a Palm Beach County native, and she joined Kaufman Lynn coming from NextEra Energy, where she served as Director of Corporate Engagement, Diversity, and Inclusion. There she was responsible for developing the corporate strategy and developing enterprise-wide experience. Before being promoted to that position, she was Regional Manager of Corporate External Affairs for Florida Power and Light. And there she was overseeing governmental and community affairs in Palm Beach, Martin, Okeechobee, and St. Lucie counties. Prior to joining Florida Power and Light, she was an entrepreneur. She was principal and owner of her own law firm, the law offices of Isaacs Williams, located in Palm Beach County. And their primary practice areas included real estate, probate, land use, zoning, and government relations. So she's been on the private side, she's been on the corporate side, and brings all sorts of interesting experiences there to bear. Her community involvement, where I've seen her, is truly extensive. Currently, she serves as board chair of the Boca Raton Chamber of Commerce. She's the vice chair of the Quantum Foundation Board of Trustees. She's the past chair of the Greater Boynton Beach Chamber of Commerce. She's a board member of the Cultural Council of Palm Beach County, also a board member of the Forum Club, the National Executive Council of the Links, and several other things. I guess I could keep going. I will also add that in addition to that, she sets a standard for leadership to which I think many of us can aspire. So with that, let me welcome Ethel Williams. Thank you once again.
Absolutely. Give it up for your dean. Come on, he's like a cool dude. He read a really long bio to you, and I just realized there's one thing I'm going to change. Anybody can guess just, I'm sure the ladies in the audience know what I'm going to change right away in that bio. It said over 30 years of working experience. Really, do I look like over 30? Don't answer that out loud. Okay, thank you. It's really a delight to be here. I love working with FAU. I've been kind of a supporter in many capacities of this institution as a homegirl, someone who grew up in Palm Beach County, went to public school in Palm Beach County. My mother was an English teacher. That just means that I got double assignment when it came to English. The reading list was never sufficient for her, so I always got extra reading. And so Palm Beach County has been the place that education was first, that was where I was first introduced and bred, and all of my wonderful endeavors in education started here in Palm Beach County. I remember when Palm Beach State was actually called Palm Beach Junior College, one of your feeder universities or colleges that feed into Florida Atlantic University. So I've seen a lot of evolution. I've seen the tremendous growth that Dr. Kelly has brought to this institution, and clearly by the size of this audience, the MBA, the higher, not just higher education, but the advanced degree is something that is still very robust, and a lot of attention is given to it and its success here at FAU. So go Owls. Woohoo! I also want to thank the sponsor. I did public affairs for so long. A lot of what I had to do, I was on the other side. I was the one writing the checks for sponsorship and corporate investment, being a good corporate citizen. So I always want to pay homage to those that really see the value in investing in our community, in particular in higher education. So give your sponsor a hand. Andre is here representing Mercantile Bank. So this is going to be, I hope for you, something that you can follow with me, because I'm going to meander a bit, because I kind of represent a pretty non-traditional path. Non-traditional in the sense that I didn't have a linear path in how I set out in my course of study or my course of my professional endeavors. I actually went to college at George Washington University. I said I was born and raised, went to John I. Leonard. So those of you who know, I see, are you a Lancer or did you go to Forest Hill?
No, ma'am, I went to Suncoast, but we had...
You went to Suncoast. My mother taught at Suncoast. And she actually taught at John F. Kennedy when it was a high school before it became, so see, I'm relating to the audience already. Who else went to school in Palm Beach County? All right, just yell it out. Where are you? Where'd you go to? John I? Yeah. What? Lancer, right here. John I? Real? Did they plant you here tonight for me, for comfort? Where else? Spanish River. Fantastic. Where are you? Atlantic? Okay. Awesome. So after I graduated and went to George Washington University, my plans at that time, I like numbers. My mother was kind of left brain, right brain. I talked about how I told you she was an English teacher, made me read a lot. But when she was in school, my mother actually started out as a mathematician, math major. Her professor, my mother's, so I am over 30, okay. So my mother went to school many, many years ago. She's now passed away, but she went many, many years ago, and her professor went to war. So if that gives you like World War II, not one, World War II. So her professor, her math professor, went to war. So her second best subject was English. So you usually don't see the equal competencies, left brain, right brain, but she was. So I thought, math was something I really liked. So I thought business. My father was a minister, but he always had another entrepreneurial side. So he had a bookstore, and so I was the free labor. I did all of the, he had cards and books and all of that. So I learned kind of the mechanics and some of the core components of business very early in life, even unbeknownst to me that I was learning certain skill sets at 16, 17 years old. So for my mother to have been this math major that kind of, she was the one. How many of you remember when you had to show your work? Anybody in here remember having to show your math in school? Right? So we didn't, literally, what that means for those, how many of you saw Hidden Figures? Okay, you saw the movie. So that's kind of the equivalent of what show your work means in math, where you actually had to write out the problems. You couldn't just go to the answer. You had to show pages of the math problem, of word problems. So I went to school, and you wouldn't believe what I wanted to be. Anybody, just throw out what you think I started as a major. Ooh, go it, girl. Who said pre-med? Not quite. Blood, I couldn't quite do the blood, but give me another one. I was in business. Huh? Engineering? No. Accounting. I thought I was going to be a great accountant because I knew someone told me early on it's all about the rules. So I said, I can read well, I comprehend, I can get the rules thing pretty down. I kind of hit my second tax class, and I was like, I'm done with this. So I changed majors. Then I looked into marketing, but I said, I don't want just marketing. I was very interested. I went to George Washington, which is situated right in the middle of D.C. We had a lot of adjunct professors who were working at the World Bank or the UN, so we had this tremendous staff, faculty there. So I said, well, maybe I'll do international business. So I already decided I'm going to leave school, and I'm going to work for a company that's international. So I picked IBM, International Business Machines. And it really did stand for machines because back then, IBM, the mainframes that they built would literally fill this room. So I know that's in your history books. You all are way too young to remember the big mainframes. Anybody remember a big mainframe? I see a nod. Okay. So I thought that was going to be my path. And it turns out that I didn't quite stay on path. I graduated on time because my mother said, you got 4 years. I told her, hey, I think I want to join a sorority. She says, how does that fit into the 4-year plan? I said, well, Mom, I'm going to get it done. So I did. I finished college, 4 years. I actually was I was being courted rather by CocaCola. And at that time, CocaCola was like big stuff, right? To come out of school and land a marketing job with Coca-Cola, I thought that would be the coolest thing. I did not go to Coca-Cola because someone sat me down when I went to Dallas and interviewed with IBM. They said, you know what? Coca-Cola seems attractive to you today because you're looking at all of the locations it's in. You're looking at a worldwide company. However, we want to invest in you as an employee, and IBM is going to give you literally another layer of education because we train our team and our associates to really understand all of the business mechanics in the real sense, not textbook, but real application. Didn't quite resonate to a 22-year-old the way it probably should have, but it was convincing enough because Coca-Cola couldn't guarantee me Atlanta. And so I saw Coca-Cola and I was going to go from Atlanta to London. I just made it up. I just thought that would be my path. But Dallas was a real location, a real promise for continued education. And I said, okay, I think I can do this. I think I can build on it. So what I learned early on is that you are always building your toolbox. How many of you are already working? I think they said this is MBA, and pretty much 80% of you are already working. So we would call you, from an HR sense, you would be an experienced MBA student, because that means you're not just in the academic world, you're also in the real work world as well. And if you're not, if you have continued from, how many continued straight from undergrad into grad school? Fantastic. So for you, it's probably something that you've gotten a little experience. Have you had at least some internships? So you've gotten a little toe in the water. You've had a little taste of what it means to work. But your primary job right now is really the educational pursuit. Am I right? Okay, so either side of the equation, be it someone that has already worked and experienced it, or work and have experience working that you bring into the classroom, or perhaps you bring really that studious and just assertiveness to the classroom to move on to the next level. Either side, you're building your toolbox. And what do I mean by building your toolbox? I can tell you that some of the courses that you just find painstakingly irritable to sit in, maybe it's statistics, maybe it's derivatives, maybe it's something on market analysis, because marketing was another one that was an eye-opener for me, right? Because marketing is really about data. You know, you're doing a lot of data trends, data analysis. So it was not just the creative side of marketing. You think of, you know, ad campaigns and ad agencies. No, you really needed to be able to track that. So I had a very rich experience at George Washington that I got a little bit of everything, but IBM really honed my talents. So the things in school that I didn't like, I did not like statistics, I will tell you. Guess what? I actually found application in my job. And so the things that you may either have an aversion or you're just not really kind of feeling it. You know, I don't think I'm going to ever need this. I just need to know it and do a data dump for the test and I'm out. I can tell you that you will find it to be valuable later on. It may have to go into your mental computer where you just put it in a recess file, but it will come in handy. I read a book called 25 Lessons I Learned from My Mistakes at Work. And it's actually a compilation of 25 professional women who wrote about things that they did in the workplace that they thought were just the most horrific assignments. They did not want to do it, but they learned from it. And one in particular was a woman, and I actually don't even remember her name. I just remembered her story. Because she was interested in ad. She wanted to be an ad agency representative and eventually an ad agency owner. And so she was doing copy at a magazine. And I don't know, some of you, anybody on the ad side of this, on the marketing side of your MBA? So you understand what it means when they say write copy. So she would be the one to basically write the story. Not necessarily even the header, but what the story copy line would be, because you'd have to sometimes truncate that information to fit into columns, etc. So she got the worst assignments. And she started just coming home lamenting over them. And this is back in the 80s, before we really had any of the real social media. Probably predates even the blogging, although blogging was somewhat the precursor to, right, the whole social media, because we started sending chain emails and, you know, follow my blog and follow my storyline. And what she found was everything, every assignment that was just excruciating to her from the standpoint of she thought it was, you know, menial in some regards. She thought it was just beneath her. She thought it was all the grunt work. In time, she started just coming home, lamenting, and doing it in an email. She actually was just typing out these stories and then sending them to, because, you know, email, we weren't really as, it hadn't really hit the landscape of our communication medium as it is today as far as emails. We're talking 80s now, right? Had some, but not a lot. How many remember Prodigy? That was like way back. That's ancient. So Prodigy was back in the, how many know AOL? Yeah, okay. You know, AOL, I think I'm going to do a lawsuit at some point because AOL still charges me. And I'm like, isn't this supposed to be free? You know, it really should be like a free access. And so they're charging me for something, but that tells you I'm not a litigator. I was a transactional lawyer. But AOL, if you think about just when it came into existence and how you actually would get a CD and you would load up that CD and then you would upload you know, the program, and all of a sudden then you were now an AOL subscriber. We don't even think, you wouldn't even think about having to go through so many steps now. You download, you click, you're on. You create accounts. You can have 10 accounts under Gmail, right? Or iCloud or what have you. But the story to where I started with this woman is that she eventually started just complaining in her soon-to-be blog. But they were real lessons, and she started to realize that other people started communicating back, sharing stories. All of a sudden, all the things she hated to do, she then became kind of the expert. They said, oh, okay, so when you wrote the copy, you know, tell us what happened when you had to completely, you know, give the argument on the other side. Tell us what happened when they changed the storyline, when they changed the header. So guess what? In about 10 years later, this grunt work set her up in a position where she was able to really become the early blogster, if that's such a word. She sold her company for $25 million in 1999. So again, the toolbox. So her takeaway in this particular kind of novel of stories is it doesn't matter how bad the assignment is. You have to kind of change your perspective and look at it as, you know, it's going to my toolbox. Because attitude, and I don't want to sound too much like a teacher, but attitude does sometimes predict altitude. If you really think, you know, I'll never get anywhere, this is why I'm never going to get the next assignment, they're never going to promote me, you have allowed your attitude to really become an impediment to your altitude. So that's a little bit of kind of my journey and my early, if you would, framing of what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about your personal journey and your personal brand. Because all of you are going to, everyone in this room is going to be either an employer or an employee. So you're either going to be, and you're going to be at some point in time in your career, you're either going to be a door knocker or a door opener. And guess what? You get to do both. At any given time, you're going to be the one knocking on a door, trying to work relationships, trying to make a connection to either your network or a connection to your family or what's familiar or your jobs. So you're sometimes knocking on the door. Hey, I need a job. Hey, I'd like to do that. Sometimes we do it for free just to get in the door. But you're either a door knocker or a door opener. In your personal journey, I promise you, you're going to experience both sides. Who's been the door knocker? Should be everybody in here is no door knock somewhere. Who's been blessed to be a door opener? Right? And it flips at any given time. So on your journey, as you're building this toolbox of experiences and skill sets, remember it's going to serve you well in one or the other. So let's talk about door knockers first, because door knockers is probably where some of you are thinking, you may not have coined it that way, but you're thinking about what's next, right? Some people just love, they just have a great thirst of learning, and they just really want, it wouldn't matter if they gave you a degree or not. That's probably a very small percentage. Even if you just really, really love learning, you gotta want to do something with it. I mean, you can only get so many masters, so many doctors. At some point, you're going to put that in practice, right? So at some point, you're going to be making the case. I'm sure in an MBA class, you talk about 30-second elevator pitches. You're talking about making that connection, because first impressions are what? Lasting. So when you're a door knocker, one of the things you want to make sure that you're doing is you've got to be able to be succinct, and you've got to be intentional. So that means I got to have my message ready. You know, what do you want to do? Hi, I'm interested in providing value to your company. Because what I do is, you know, I work in a field that perhaps is a niche. Maybe you haven't thought about this. Maybe you haven't really thought about how cybersecurity can actually be a value proposition to your customers. I'd like to talk to you more about that. Have a succinct message. And then you have to make sure, after that succinct message, that you're connecting to the person who's the door knocker, who's the door opener, I'm sorry. So when you're in those positions, when you are knocking on the door, you want to be succinct, and then the other thing I said, be intentional. Sometimes we're afraid to be bold and just ask for what we want. So, okay, I'll get back to you. I really would like to have a meeting. Okay, can we follow up in a week? Is it okay with you? Wonderful. I'd love to follow up with you and talk to you more about it. May I send you something? Okay, thank you. He's good. I think he's been on both sides. So what you have to do is be intentional with that statement. Be succinct, because they don't have a lot of time. They may not even know you. I've done that a number of times where I've seen people and I was just so impressed in their delivery or their command of the audience or what they presented. I said, I want to know that person. So I said, hey, and maybe it's on the, hey, you know what, I'm serving on a board and you just seem like someone that would be wonderful to bring into our board, blah, 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 blah. Next, can I follow up with you? Would you be interested in coming to our board meeting to do that? Be succinct, be intentional. That's the door knocker. Door opener. You need to look beyond sometimes what it is presented to you in the form that it's presented to you. What do I mean by that? I mean that sometimes we're really not talking to people, we're talking through people, or we're talking at people. So you might just be kind of polite. Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, thanks. Oh, that's so nice of you. All right, we're out. We haven't listened. We haven't actively engaged in listening. We've just kind of been perfunctory in doing what we think is polite because we don't want to be perceived as rude. But as a door opener, now let me preface this by saying everybody who knocks on your door perhaps is not ready to come through the door. So you have to have a little bit of discernment and a little bit of use all of that knowledge, that toolbox, so that you can kind of do a quick summation of the whole person. So even if what they're presenting is not something that you can readily use yourself, you need to be making instant assessment. Not just in the delivery, because people are nervous. Everybody's not a great speaker. Everybody's not comfortable just walking up saying, Andre, hi, how are you? They're just not comfortable doing that, looking them in the eye, right? So if they're not comfortable doing that, then what you need to make sure is that you are actively listening. So now I need to kind of hang on your words. I need to see if beyond the nervousness, does this person have some potential? And A, do they know what they want? That's why it's so important for the door knocker. You've got to be succinct. You've got to have that message ready, and then you've got to be ready to do the close. meaning the close at that juncture is the next meeting or the next follow-up. But for the door opener, sometimes our personal biases eliminates talent. You don't look like me. You don't sound like me. I don't know you. You don't dress like me. I don't like your haircut. So I have made that first impression, I've made some instant judgments on whether or not I trust the person, whether or not I want to know more about the person, or whether I want to end this conversation and move on. So sometimes we have what they call unconscious bias that can block and impede us from active listening. Interesting study. I did diversity and inclusion, so I gotta bring a little bit of that toolbox to this setting. And one of the last presenters I brought in was someone from a group called the Howard Ross Company. And so they have just done very long studies, and they have a long-standing reputation in that space. And I brought one of the principals in, and so one of the things she shared with us, her name was Lenore Billings Harris. One of the things she shared with us, she said, you know, people, she said, I'm going to give you some shocking information about unconscious bias as it relates to first impressions. Number one, we listen to, we're very audible, right? So we're very sensory in what we hear. If the language or the dialect is similar or close to the dominant language in that country or place, and she was basically talking in the Western Hemisphere, so she used the U.S. So the more you sound like the dominant culture in the U.S., the more likely I am to, A, continue to listen and to continue to engage. If, however, the more distant you are in your sound intonation of the dominant language spoken in that area, then I am going to be less inclined to find you trustworthy, with one exception. The one exception is British. In Western civilization, here's another giant. He can get up here and talk this speech for me. How are you? I know, just bust in, you know, this is... Excuse me. Greg is a friend of mine, and I didn't know you were coming, but I'm very happy to see you. But if you are British in the Western Hemisphere, it is automatically perceived as more trustworthy. So the closer you are to the dominant language, the more trusting and believable I want to hear more about what you say. With the exception, if you're British, you kind of jump ahead to the front of the class. The less you are, then the less. Now, what does that mean? Remember, we're talking door knockers and door openers. Door openers, you must get beyond that unconscious bias so that you actively listen to what is being spoken to you. So guess what? Sometimes the person is presenting a message to you. It really doesn't fit your organization, your needs at that place and point in time. However, your active listening skills may be able to connect in your mind, so you do cybersecurity. You know what? I don't have a need today, but I know someone that's very much looking for someone to do that. May I connect you to them? So it may not be a one-to-one connection, but again, we talk about networking all the time. What is networking? What is it? Connecting people? Connecting people means it's what? It is relational. It's relationship. That's all networking is. You know, once upon a time, we didn't even have this word networking. We just did it, right? You just met people, and in certain what we call clubs, right? Certain old guard clubs, didn't matter. You played tennis, you played golf. Hey, my son, my this, my that. They need a job. Let's do it. They were networking. I don't think they put a label on it. They just called it, it was relational. It's all about the relationship. So be it a door knocker or door opener, that relational connection, it's what's important. And you actually have about 7 seconds to make it. So sometimes we throw out the numbers, you go, oh, that's short. How long is the average TV commercial? 30 seconds. They pay millions. A real long commercial is 1 minute. Where are my TV folks? Where are my ad agencies? Advertising? No? Okay. Marketing? Yeah, average, every night. You know, unless you're like my husband and you channel surf, he just has no patience for the commercial. And I'm like, I really want to see the commercial. I'm like into the commercial. It's mindless for me. He's like, no, let's go watch 12 stations instead of 2 stations. So we're between golf and sports and Turner Classic. We just click, 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 which is why we have more than one television in the home. So along this journey, you're going to have a toolbox that you're building. While you're building that toolbox, you're going to be put in position where you're either a door opener or a door knocker. And then the thing I want to talk about in this journey, or along this journey, part of that toolbox, I got to bring it home to what you're doing right now. You are building the most incredible toolbox or assets within your toolbox from your business acumen that you're developing. You need to be able to speak businessese. You got to have the lingo. It's cool to have, you know, you got to know the little sports, you know, be topical for those networking, you know, cocktail receptions. But every now and then you got to say what the Dow is doing. You need to just kind of know from the business page. You know, they used to say, hey, just flip to the front in the sports. I say flip to sports, front, and business section. You got to know who's moving in what areas within business. And guess what? Not just U.S., but what? Global. We live in a global world. Our world is shrinking. So literally, you know, with the speed of jets, I mean, it's nothing to go from Hong Kong to London, you know, come back for a few days, and then you got to go to Sydney. So if you have an appetite for the really global traveling, it's no longer like, oh, wow, we're going to go to Hong Kong, and oh my God, that's my big trip for the year. No, Hong Kong may be in the same week where you're going to 3 other countries, literally around the world. So have a sense of the global community as in your toolkit. The other thing I want to touch on is, as you're building business, how many people volunteer in the community? If you're sitting on boards, great. Or you're just volunteering right now in the community, in nonprofits, the Y, Habitat for Humanity. You're going to be an ideal candidate for a board at some point. You're well trained, you're well poised, I can tell, and then you're going to have some little extra disposable income real soon if you don't already. What nonprofits need the most from their board members is to think like businessmen and women. Nonprofits sometimes, and I actually was interviewed about this because I sit on so many boards, they said, what would be your takeaway to board members or people who are looking to join boards? They want to give back, they've got a philanthropic heart, they love the community. I said, what they need to bring to every board is a discipline of business and a business acumen. Because nonprofit doesn't mean you should be in the red. Doesn't mean you should be unprofitable. Right? That's a tax classification. So what you find is a lot of them are grassroots. A lot of them, and I say this because I also believe in really the way all boats rise is that those of us who are blessed and afforded to do better things and have better earnings, we really do owe it to the greater society to share your time, talent, and treasure in some capacity. In some capacity. Because you've heard this, society is as strong as its weakest link. That means you need to have a care and concern for the least of these. So for those who you say, oh, well, that's not my problem, that's not my issue, not my neighborhood. You know what? I care because I need the person who is checking me in at the hospital, right, to have a real good understanding on literacy. I need you to read that medicine so that you don't give me the wrong dosage, and I'm dead. So you need to bring to those nonprofits who are really born out of passion. They're born out of a cause a lot of times. They're trying to really make a difference and an impact. What they need you for when they come knocking on your door and they have that 30-second elevator pitch, they're really looking to you because of the value add you would bring to that organization. So don't minimize what that does for your overall personal brand, which is where I want to end with. Your personal brand is very important to who you are. It matters not really what other banner you're connected with. You know, we talk about, you know, in every good company, you got a few bad apples. In every agency, don't you be the bad apple. You need to, as you're building this toolbox, as you're developing your skill sets to be both a door opener and a door knocker, as you're harnessing your business acumen, at the end of the day, and you hear companies say this all the time, our number one asset is what? Our people. So what's the differentiator? What differentiates you from your colleague next door, sitting next to you, office next to you, office down the hall? It's that personal brand. What's your name? So Samantha, I can count on Samantha. She shows up, she's on time, she's prompt, and you know what? She just does extra. She's just there. Is that you? That's not you? Okay, yeah. And Savannah? Savannah, Samantha. Oh, my. All right, let me go to the middle. Right? What separates you from the pack is that personal brand. So I tell people it doesn't matter sometimes, you know, because life happens, right, to all of us. Life happens, and there's going to be something. Everyone has an ebb and flow in just your life cycle. You know, be it the passing away of loved ones. You could go through a very traumatic personal experience. You could have a very traumatic professional experience, be it a layoff, a downturn, a downsizing, whatever. At the end of the day, your resolve and your resolution is all wrapped up in that personal brand. Your values matter. You know, we don't always talk about this, you know, in B school. This is not classroom talk. You know, I told you my mother was a teacher. She used to do life lessons talking because it's about beyond the classroom walls. And so you're adults. You're not kids. I'm not talking to high schoolers. But I do think it's important to remind even adults that your personal brand is your integrity at the core. And then what you exemplify and what you portray from that, that's when people, you know what? My job now, I wasn't looking to leave where I was. I enjoyed my company, great spot where I was. The relationship that I had developed over 6 years of sitting side by side with the CEO on a board, all of a sudden, as the CEO was looking to expand his leadership team, the personal brand, I want to believe, weighed in. That is what triggered the conversation, which started out very much in a jovial sense of me congratulating him on his growth. You're doing great. This is awesome. If anything I can do, let me help you. So guess what? I was probably doing a subconscious door knocking. Subconscious in the sense I wasn't looking for movement. I genuinely was congratulatory and wanting to say, hey, this is so exciting. If there's something I can do to be a part of it or help you, call me, count on me, count me in. That relationship led to this position as being part of the executive team. It was a personal brand because it wasn't a poaching. You know, we say that in, how many HR folks, anybody work in HR in their day job? So they call that poaching sometimes. You go and poach, you know, the talent from another organization or department. It wasn't that. It was the personal brand. So I'm pretty much wrapped up.